If you've ever felt like the tiniest bit of criticism cuts you to the core, you're not alone. Some of us are just way more sensitive than others. And you know what? That might actually be connected to your personality type. Today we're diving into the world of Myers-Briggs to uncover which types are the most sensitive to criticism, and more importantly, how to approach them with feedback in a way that's kind and helpful. Because let's face it, criticism is part of life, but how we deliver it can make all the difference. Let's figure out how to support the sensitive folks in our lives and help them grow without them feeling totally crushed in the process. Understanding how different personalities handle criticism can change everything. It improves your friendships, helps you navigate tough feedback at work, and maybe even helps you understand yourself a little better. Okay, let's get into it. While everyone can experience moments of sensitivity, some personality types are naturally more likely to take things personally. Generally speaking, if someone puts a high value on emotions and relationships, those with the F in their type code, they'll usually take criticism harder than those who prioritize logic and objectivity. T types. Also, introverts, I, have a tendency to overanalyze feedback because they spend more time processing things internally. Extroverts, E, often talk things out and move on a bit more easily. Finally, those who are highly intuitive, N, the big picture thinkers, can sometimes mistake specific criticism for an attack on their entire vision. Sensing types, S, are more detail-oriented and usually less likely to do this. With all that in mind, let's look at which Myers-Briggs types tend to be the most sensitive to criticism. Generally, we see the highest sensitivity in types that combine several traits. They prioritize emotions and values, making criticism feel deeply personal. They also tend to process things internally, which can lead to overanalyzing feedback. These types might also focus on the big picture, meaning specific criticism can feel like their whole vision is being dismissed. Finally, they might hold themselves to very high standards, making criticism sting even more. This means types like INFJ, INFP, ISFJ, ESFJ, ENFJ, and ENFP are likely to be among the most sensitive. Of course, every individual is unique, and other factors can absolutely play a role in how someone handles criticism. We've figured out that certain personality types tend to be more sensitive to criticism. But what's at the root of this sensitivity? There are a few key factors at play. First, many sensitive types, especially those who prioritize feelings, have deep empathy. They absorb the emotions of others, so negative feedback can hit extra hard because they might actually feel the disappointment or hurt they imagine they're causing someone else. Secondly, intuitive types, those who love exploring possibilities, tend to be idealistic. They have a strong vision for how things could be, and criticism can feel like a dismissal of that vision. This can be pretty demoralizing. Additionally, some sensitive types have perfectionist tendencies. They set incredibly high standards for themselves, and even the most constructive feedback can feel like a sign of failure. Finally, types that crave harmony and cooperation often place great value on relationships. They might see criticism as something that disrupts the positive dynamic they desire, and this fear of disapproval can make it difficult to hear feedback objectively. It's super important to remember that being sensitive to criticism isn't a bad thing. It often stems from admirable qualities like caring deeply, striving for excellence, and wanting to contribute positively. The tricky part is when this sensitivity becomes overwhelming and actually gets in the way of growth and improvement. That means we need to find ways to approach sensitive people with feedback in a way that's both helpful and kind. But first, let's take a closer look at INFJs and INFPs. These are the deep thinkers and feelers of the Myers-Briggs world, and they tend to be particularly sensitive to criticism. There are a few reasons for this. Firstly, these types are often idealistic. They envision a better future and put their whole hearts into making it happen. Because of this, criticism of their ideas can feel incredibly personal, like a dismissal of their values and what they believe in. Secondly, INFJs and INFPs are incredibly empathetic. They absorb the emotions of others, and negative feedback can hit extra hard because they might internalize the hurt they think they've caused. Finally, many INFJs and INFPs are perfectionists. They have high standards for themselves, and even the smallest bit of disapproval can feel like a crushing failure. So, how do we approach these sensitive types with feedback in a helpful way? It's important to acknowledge their effort and dedication. Let them know you see how hard they're working. Frame your criticism constructively, suggesting ways they can achieve their goals. Focus on potential solutions and offer encouragement throughout the conversation. Let's talk about ISFJs and ESFJs. These types are incredibly focused on helping others and keeping things harmonious in their relationships. This intense focus on connection makes them particularly sensitive to criticism. They worry about disrupting the positive dynamic they desire, and they take their responsibilities to heart. Even constructive feedback can feel deeply personal because it conflicts with their desire to do a good job and be helpful. So how do we approach ISFJs and ESFJs with feedback in a helpful and supportive way? Firstly, emphasize that you're providing feedback because you want to help them succeed and reach their full potential. Focus on specific examples and avoid generalizations that might feel like attacks on their character. And finally, because these types are so sensitive, be extra mindful of your tone and choose your words with the utmost care. Let's talk about ENFJs and ENFPs. These types are the visionaries, the motivators, and they can also take criticism to heart. They are intensely driven by their big picture ideas and the desire to make a positive impact. This means any criticism of their work or their vision can feel like a dismissal of everything they believe in, which can be really discouraging. ENFJs and ENFPs often deeply desire approval. They want to be liked and appreciated. Because of this, negative feedback can hit extra hard, making them feel as if they aren't living up to those expectations. Additionally, these types tend to invest so much of themselves into their passions and causes that criticism can sometimes feel like a personal attack on their values and who they are at their core. So how can we approach ENFJs and ENFPs with feedback that's both helpful and supportive? Start by acknowledging their passion and dedication. Let them know you see how hard they work and how much they believe in their goals. Instead of focusing solely on the problems, frame your feedback as a way to refine their vision and help them have an even greater impact on the world. Okay, now the important part. How do we actually give feedback to someone who's sensitive without crushing their spirit? The best way to start is by focusing on the positive. Highlight the things they did really well. It helps them see that you appreciate their efforts and eases the way for more critical feedback. Now, while the classic compliment critique compliment sandwich can work sometimes, it might feel fake to particularly sensitive types. Instead, focus on being genuine and kind throughout the entire conversation. Choose your words carefully, avoiding harsh language or generalizations like "you always" or "you never." Try to focus on specific examples and offer helpful suggestions instead of just criticisms. It's also important to remember that feedback is about helping them grow and improve, not just fixing something you don't like. Framing your points that way makes a huge difference. Finally, timing matters. Whenever possible, choose a time when the person feels relaxed and not overwhelmed. Avoid giving feedback when they're already stressed or in a vulnerable emotional state. Above all, the most important thing is to approach sensitive people with empathy. Put yourself in their shoes and try to understand how your words might land. A little care and genuine consideration can transform how feedback is received. Remember, it's possible to deliver constructive criticism in a way that's respectful and encourages growth. Let's recap some of the most important things we've covered today. First, understanding how different personality types respond to criticism can make a world of difference in your relationships, at work, at home, and with friends. Second, sensitivity to feedback isn't a weakness. It often comes from a place of deep caring and a desire to do things right. And finally, when we approach sensitive people with empathy, kindness, and well-chosen words, we can give feedback that helps them grow without feeling totally crushed. Giving effective feedback is a skill that takes practice. Don't get discouraged if it's a bit awkward at first. The more you focus on understanding how the people in your life function, the smoother these conversations will become. Do you have a sensitive person in your life? Maybe a coworker, a friend, or a family member? Try applying some of the things you learned today the next time you need to give them feedback. I'd love to hear how it goes. Let me know in the comments, and if this video was helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.